The burden of knowledge. Sarah Chen stood at her office window, watching rain spatter against the glass. 20 stories below, umbrellas bobbed along the sidewalk like black jellyfish in a concrete sea. In 3 days, she would deliver her closing argument in the most challenging case of her career. Her client, Marcus Dawson, had confessed to a brutal crime that had shocked the community. As his defense attorney, Sarah had been prepared to negotiate a plea deal when the court-ordered psychiatric evaluation revealed something unexpected. Marcus had a rare neurological condition that affected his impulse control and decision-making capabilities. The prosecution painted Marcus as a monster who deserved the harshest punishment. Sarah initially saw him as a troubled man who needed rehabilitation alongside consequences. But yesterday, the neurologist's report had arrived on her desk, changing everything. The abnormality in the orbitofrontal cortex, Dr. Rayner had explained over the phone, combined with the genetic markers we found and his history of childhood trauma, created what we might call a perfect neurological storm. The likelihood that Marcus could have chosen differently in that moment is vanishingly small. Sarah picked up the thick folder containing brain scans, genetic analyses, and psychological evaluations. Science was increasingly suggesting that free will, the foundation of criminal justice, might be an illusion. If Marcus's actions were the inevitable result of his brain chemistry, genetics, and past experiences, could he truly be held responsible? "Counselor," her assistant Julian appeared at the door. "Marcus is here for your meeting." Marcus sat across from her, his eyes downcast. He looked smaller than his 6-foot frame suggested, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of what he'd done. "They say there's something wrong with my brain," he said quietly, "that I couldn't help it." Sarah hesitated. "The evidence suggests your neurological condition severely compromised your ability to make rational choices or control your impulses during the incident." "But I did it," Marcus whispered. "I remember doing it. I remember choosing to do it, even if I couldn't stop myself." His eyes met hers. "Does that report mean I'm not responsible? That I never had a choice?" The question hung between them, unanswerable. Later that evening, Sarah met her mentor, Judge Eleanor Weiss, retired after 30 years on the bench. Over dinner at Eleanor's book-lined apartment, Sarah laid out the case. "If I present this evidence effectively, Marcus could receive treatment instead of prison," Sarah explained. "But I'm troubled by the implications. If we accept that his actions were determined by his biology and experiences, where do we draw the line? Couldn't the same be said for anyone who commits a crime?" Eleanor listened thoughtfully, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "The law has always struggled with this tension between determinism and moral responsibility. We punish people based on the assumption that they could have chosen differently, but science keeps pushing back on that assumption." "So what's the answer?" Sarah asked. "If free will is an illusion, is our entire justice system built on a flawed premise?" "Perhaps," Eleanor conceded. "But consider this. Even if Marcus's actions were determined by factors beyond his control, our response to his actions isn't similarly constrained. We can choose a response that acknowledges both the reality of his neurological condition and the harm he caused." Sarah frowned. "You're suggesting I can exercise free will in how I defend him, even while arguing he lacked free will in committing the crime." "I'm suggesting that moral responsibility might be more nuanced than a binary question of free will versus determinism," Eleanor replied. "Perhaps what matters most is not whether Marcus could have chosen differently, but how we choose to respond, with justice that combines accountability with compassion." The night before her closing argument, Sarah stood again at her office window. The rain had stopped, leaving the city gleaming under streetlights. She had made her decision. In court the next day, she presented the neurological evidence not as an excuse but as context. "My client's condition didn't make his actions inevitable, but it made them far more likely," she told the jury. "Understanding this doesn't eliminate responsibility, it transforms how we should view that responsibility." She argued for a sentence that combined monitoring, treatment, and appropriate consequences. Justice isn't served by ignoring the biological realities that influence human behavior, she concluded. True justice recognizes both the complex causes of harmful actions and our collective responsibility to respond with wisdom rather than vengeance. After the verdict, a compromise that mandated treatment alongside a reduced sentence, Sarah visited Marcus one last time. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked him. "By acknowledging the role your brain chemistry played without absolving you of all responsibility." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if I had a choice then," he finally said. "But I have choices now, about how I understand what I did, how I make amends, how I move forward. Maybe that's what matters most." Moral of the story. The debate over free will versus determinism creates a false dichotomy. True moral wisdom lies not in resolving whether our choices are entirely free, but in recognizing that understanding the causes of human behavior, biological, psychological, and social, should inform rather than eliminate our conception of responsibility. Justice is found not in assigning blame as if people were entirely free from their conditioning factors, but in responding to harmful actions with a combination of accountability, compassion, and a commitment to healing and prevention.